afternoon, good morning, depending where you are and across Canada and the United States. And welcome to our webinar today. And I'm absolutely honored and I'm smiling because I've known this gentleman for many, many years. And we always are smiling and laughing at ourselves and what's going on around the planet. Uh, but at its core, we both really care about business owners and the people that they bring into their firms. So I'm honored to introduce Tim Brennan. He doesn't talk much about being the founder of Fit First Technologies because he now is the chief visionary officer of Fit First Technologies. He now has partners and they kind of turn the dials in the background, and Tim keeps doing what he does best, and that's communicating the great skills and the attributes that this company has. So Tim, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Paul. It's great to be here. We only got a half hour, so we better get rolling.
Yeah, we got to get rolling. Okay. I didn't say that Tim's a taskmaster, but anyway, so we're going to talk today about finding and retaining great people, some interesting information on the cost of employee turnover, which is a big problem in industry. But we're here to go, so and we're going to stay on time. Tim, the accounting industry has been hit on many fronts the past years, and the shortage of accountants, especially now having added an extra year, 6 years now to become a CPA, has put a lot of pressure on accounting firms to find quality good people. The pandemic also changed the landscape of staffing and finding good people because working remotely, hybrid, came on the table, and all of a sudden the shift seemed to think that the power was actually with the employee and not the employer. And that had many of us, business owners or firm owners alike, on our back feet. All of a sudden, we have to cowtail to our staff. So it becomes very important that we research and find the right people. So what have you seen in the landscape of what's gone on, Tim, here in the last few years? What can you share a little bit with us here?
Well, hey, first of all, thanks, Paul, for letting me come and join you today, and hello to everyone out there. It's interesting. We knew it was coming. This isn't like, it shouldn't be a surprise that the change in the relationships between worker, employer, and employee was coming. 20 years ago, we were sounding the bells of alarms out there that with the population shifting and as the population gets older, we're going to have more and more people looking for services and less people to do them. So what we didn't plan for was that we were going to have this event occur where all of a sudden, right in the middle of this baby boom peak, hitting into the near retirement age, that a whole slew of them, all of a sudden, we're going to go, wow, maybe I don't need to work as hard as I used to anymore. And maybe I can retire. And all of a sudden, we now have this shortage right through the whole system. And it doesn't matter what industry we're talking about. It's everywhere. So now all of a sudden we've got just today, listening in the news around small businesses here in Canada, they claim that we're $38 billion worth of business that was lost to small business because they didn't have the people to do the work. That's incredible.
Wow. That's a big number.
It's huge. No, it doesn't mean it hit the GPA, the country, because of course companies were doing what they could, but there was that much pent up demand. So wow. I suspect CPAs are dealing with the exact same issues.
Well, they are actually, especially in the senior ranks. There's an abundance of, I shouldn't say abundance, usually you could find a bookkeeper or a junior accountant or a technician. But as soon as you get into the junior manager, senior manager role, and these people who had traditionally been working 60, 70 hours a week, and as you just said, go, hold it, why am I working this hard?
Yeah.
And the younger people today really want the work-life balance. They don't want to be a slave to their employers or what they deem to be a slave.
Or what's happened, Paul, is that, what if you look at it, what happens, the realization is that we don't need to work the way we did because we don't have to. There's now new options. And
Yes.
whether or not you're going to have, you say your office is a traditional office and everyone, there are people who want that. There are people who are looking for the balance that you're talking about, but there's
Yeah.
still people who are looking for. So now you're getting into what we're talking about, which is what makes it work is fit. And there's some really interesting stuff, like, because right now, because when you're shorthanded, I mean, you've got loss of billable hours, you got loss of productivity, when you're just a shorthanded of not having a people. But when you're bringing someone in now, we now have to think about, there's kind of like two camps. There's one where you can go out and find people and take them from other companies. So you can find people who are already trained. You can find people who have all the education experience, and you can try and steal them from the other company. Or you got to start seriously considering on how you're going to grow your own. How are you going to rearrange your organization so that someone can come in with lower level of education and work experience, get the work experience and education with you? So if you think about it, there's four pieces. There's the what they know, the what they've done, there's the who they are, and then there's this fourth element, which is time. Where time are they in their life? Hey, I'm 62 years old. I'm at that time in my life where I think working 20 hours is just enough. Thank you very much. I'll do a great 20 hours. But if you need me to do 40 or 50, I'm not your guy.
Well, and that's really was the pendulum swinging back. I mean, you and I, in our, shall we say, our mature working career, in professional careers, are in the position to make those choices. But the 30 or 40 somethings who are working their way up through kind of want some of the benefits that we already have, but we've earned. And so how do we engage them? How do we actually want to be at work and want to contribute?
Well, and that's about understanding your people, know your people. So I always start with self and start with the people you already have. So
Yes.
the first question is, because every organization has a different culture, right? There's going to be four critical aspects of fit here. Fit with the job. When can the person do the work? Fit with the manager, the owner of the company, and that person, or who's their direct report. Then there's fit with the team, all those people that are already in the place. And then there's fit with the organization's culture. Now, you and I have talked about this before, Paul. I said, I've asked you before about CPAs and, what kind of culture does the organization have? And I've always said, don't worry if they don't know what it is. They have one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would be a great fit in one organization and I'd be a disastrous fit in another. But
yeah.
The thing that I truly believe that is the take, even, from today's conversation, is start with self. Understand your existing people. Understand why are the people who are your stars today? Who are the people you wish you had a basket full of? Those ones already working with you. What is it about them? Why is it that they show up for work every Monday? Why do they come back? What is it that you are fulfilling for them? Not what are they fulfilling for you, but what are you fulfilling for them? And understand what you're good at as a manager. And then let's go find more people who you're the right manager for them.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And then if we're going to have a situation where you're going to bring someone in, my gosh, we need to get it right.
So we need to be, what I'm hearing here is that it's not just about us going out and finding the right employee. We need to know who we are to make sure they're going to be fitting with us, not just them fitting with us. In other words, they're interviewing a smart, good employee or accountant. They're interviewing us because they want to go to the firm that fits who they think they are.
And am I the right manager? Am I the right organization for this person to come and join? Because if I'm the right fit, they'll stay.
Yeah.
I see you're putting up that's pretty scary numbers.
Yep. And that Tim had shared this with me, and I want to bring it up on the screen. I'm going to put this link in the chat box for if anybody wants to see it. But Tim, if you just want to share a little bit about this, what the
Well,
costs really are here.
Well, I went and did a little work research before we got on our call later in the week, and then Rick put this together. Rick Telberg's, and you can read about him on the page. But you know what he's saying, it's when you look at the cost of bringing in somebody, spending the time to bring them in and orientate them, bring them in the organization, and I always think of the most expensive the hire is the one you bring in, train, and then they leave. You spend all the money you can on them and then you get no ROI on them. And this Rick is saying it's really a bit over 50% of the salary. So he's saying a 60,000 salary. He's saying that the cost here is about $38,000 to the bottom line of an organization, or 32,500 was cost per person. So it's insane that. And by the way, the numbers aren't exaggerated in here. I've seen this for other industries and then see the exact same scenarios. Something as simple as Subway restaurants, where you have a part-time employee, they call them the sandwich artist. Subway calculates the cost of bringing someone in, putting them through their training, and putting them on the front line as costing them $3,800.
Yeah.
That's a part-time employee at a sandwich shop. If you don't get it right when you're bringing someone in an accountant firm, I mean, you've now got to deal with productivity going down. You've got more absenteeism. You've got the cost of onboarding. You've got them engaging with your customers, and now they're not there anymore. So you've got customer loyalty declining. You get more complaints. I mean, basically, the business just doesn't run. And then you start putting pressure on the people who are still there because the person didn't work out. Now you're asking your best people to put in more time to cover for them. I mean, there's nothing in there that's good.
And really, I mean, if we go to the 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle is that it's the same with, you make 80% of your revenue for your firm from 20% of your clients, and you get 80% of the productivity in your firm from 20% of your staff. It goes on. And guess what? The people who do this, the producers, they're tired of carrying the weight for the slow producers or the people just getting by. So the good people, it behooves you, they want more of them. They want more people like them who are engaged, who are productive, and enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, well, and in the business today, if I've got 12, I'm going to use a simple small house. I've got 12, 15 people working in the office. I can pretty much say that every organization kind of follows this pattern. There's going to be about 3 or 4 people that they'll call them their stars, and they wish they had a basket full of them. Yep. On the other end, now, I don't use the word poor performers, because if you have poor performers in your business, we need to have a different conversation about why you're accepting that. So I'm going to go on the assumption that no one has on this call, nobody's got poor performers. But what they do have is they have 3 or 4 people in the organization that are passengers. They're okay, all right, frankly, don't hurt you enough to be pushed out the door. They're probably making, at least something's getting done, but they're driving down the productivity of your whole organization, and they're driving down your P&L because you accept mediocrity. It's funny, Paul, there's people who quit the job and don't leave. And yep. I find there's usually a few of those, and those people, they're there because you haven't found more stars.
And good people leave bad companies and bad managers.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's the number one reason people leave it's the number one reason people leave their jobs is the relationship with their direct report. Now, yep. Leave the job doesn't mean they quit the company. They just show up and only do the bare minimum and disengage. And that's even more expensive than having a vacancy, because at least a vacancy, organizations are forced to have to respond to go and fix it.
And I'm hearing you say that because when I think about the last slide that I just brought up, and we talked about, let's say, a $60,000, junior account, $60 annual, and they stay for 6 months and leave. So you actually paid them 30, but if your cost of turnover was 32, you actually paid them 13 months
Yeah.
salary for 6 months work, because that's what you have to go through to get the next one.
Yeah.
It's
So
so.
yeah, so we
What are
know
some of the?
we know what the situation is now,
Yep.
right?
So
Now we got to
what's
say,
the
so what the
solution?
hell do we do, right?
That's you took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you, Tim.
What the hell are we going to do? Well, I truly believe there's one thing we haven't been doing right. If we look at the traditional hiring system, we've been using the same way of hiring people for over 50 years.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks ago, I was speaking at a national conference in Ottawa, and the organization, all their members across the country, did a survey about what their number one problems were for the growth of their business, and then one of the big three was always people. It was always labor, and then when they broke down questions about labor, they had three things. It was they hired somebody, they showed up, and it wasn't who they thought they were going to be. They hired somebody, they trained them, and then they left. Or they couldn't find enough people to hire, so they lowered their standards and brought in somebody to get the job done. And 89% of the organizations in the room had said these were the problems they were having. The problem I had was I pulled them out a study from 1973, which is 50 years ago. And guess what, Paul? It was the same big three problems.
Yeah.
So in 50 years, we haven't solved any problems and challenges in recruiting. 50 years. So what I'm going to suggest we have to do is we have to stop for a moment, stop doing what we've been doing for 50 years, put it to the side, and just maybe consider we haven't been measuring the right things. And that's
how do we measure? How do we measure? We can quantify skills, education, the resume, and I've always submitted to the fact that a resume says who they think they are and not really who they are. But carry on with your point here about.
Well, I think what we do is we take the hiring process and we completely reverse it. So in the traditional hiring system, we put people in the yes, no, maybe piles based on what they know and what they've done. And then we look at who they are and try to figure if that they'd be a fit with our organization. How about if we flipped it around? And what we do now is we put people in the yes, no, maybe piles based on who they are. And then we look at what they know and what they've done. So we can have the conversation. Am I prepared to fill the gap with this person? Am I prepared to invest in this person so that I can help them close the gap on what they know and what they have? Now, you may get people who come in and they have all the knowledge and all the education, and you don't have to train. Good for you. That's, they might be a great fit, and you got all the buckets, all the stars are there. But then you're going to have people who are a really great fit, but you know what? They're just a junior. They're just a bookkeeper, or they want to become a full-fledged CPA in time. Why not have them show up in your interview and have a conversation with them about how can we support you while you work for us and grow you? Because we really got to get away from trying to find more bookkeepers that don't exist and more accountants that don't exist, and start figuring out how do we get more of them into our own house and how do we grow our own? And that's a big chunk of what this process is about. It's about starting with step one, is taking a look at who are you, who are your own existing people, what is it that in your organization are the critical traits that identify the culture and the people you have, so that we use that information to then screen the yes, no, maybe pile people into people who fit within your organizations. So now instead of looking at 50 applicants, you look at 10 people who are really good fit.
and and what jumped out at me is, so you actually reviewed, if you had 100 people apply, you had to have your hands on every one of them before you could
Yeah.
put them in a pile. So if we know who they are earlier in the process, we don't have to have our hands on 50 applicants. We only need to look at 10 or 15.
Yeah. And now what we've done is we've actually made it so it's all automated, so you can just pop them up on the screen. So you can actually fill, if you need to find somebody who has and I'm going to call this in for this industry, I'm going to call them admission tickets to the game. Every organization in on this call is going to have different admission tickets to the game. It's like there's somebody right now who's listening to us talk and say, well, I don't have time to train anybody. I'm only going to hire people who are already trained. Okay, so you have a really big admission ticket to the game. So you got to turn that dial up really high and recognize that's the only people that are going to be a fit for you. There's other people going, I might be able to take the work I have and divide it kind of like karate belts into 3 different levels. And I could have this junior work. It's funny, Paul. I always joke about the fact that one of the things I realized in my own business 20 years ago was that here I had all these people making $25 an hour, but I had a whole bunch of $12 an hour work. And I realized I had no one in my team that I paid $12 to do $12 an hour work. So I was paying $25 an hour people to do $12 an hour work. And I went, wow, that's a mistake.
I'm going to jump all over that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
for the accountants, the small firm owners who are in 1 hour advising their client, and billing, say, $200, doing high level tax work or business CFO work. And then the next hour, they're jumping in and doing bookkeeping at $50 an hour at the billable rate. So, to take what you've said, you had all these people working at that fee, but from an accountant's perspective, especially when you're building your business, holy smokes, I'm here 1 hour and I'm there the next hour.
Well, I know, and it all starts with one simple step. The goal of the first step is only to get to the second step, and the goal of the first step is understand your own existing organization, so we know what to be measuring for, so that the fit is a higher probability of success for you. It's not a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
What works for one company doesn't work for the other.
So when, I mean, I've faced this, and I'm a partner with Fit First Technologies and spent a lot of time with Tim, and brought numerous companies in to do who is the firm profile, and not profile, but preference traits and their decision making abilities. And the people are sometimes afraid to fill them out because they might be afraid of finding out who they really are, and that can happen. And but so what's the process when we go through that? I mean, what would typically happen if you're working with, say, an owner or 2 partners and a couple of key people? What would the process be?
Well, there's a couple rules we all have to keep in mind. One of them is we all have to reserve the right to get smarter. We aren't going to make any assumptions at the beginning about what we're going to learn. We're just going to
Okay.
let it happen. So the first step is always we need to collect some data. So what happens is I provide a link where they can invite all the people in their own organization to go online. Takes about 20 minutes to answer a series of questions, and all that data comes back into our pool, which is all private and secure for that company, where
Yes.
then we can then have a conversation where we start sorting through the who's who in the group, so that we can then look and see. And what I'm really looking for is I want to see within the organization, of the 25 different data points that we can collect on the who they are, I want to see what they all have in common, because that may be critical to the organization's culture. Then when we split it down, I want to look and see what do the different characters have that makes them unique and different from the others, because those might be the things we need to be aware of when we're recruiting to avoid. So, you're going to have your stars and your passengers. Your stars and passengers are going to have things that look similar. However, there's going to be things that your stars and passengers are going to show up that are different. We just don't know what they are. It could be as simple, Paul, as something like decisiveness, you know, because the types of things that we're going to measure is not not the decisiveness of what decisions they'll make, but what's the process they go through. Are they comfortable with the risk? I'm going to say that you probably need to have in the accounting space, you need bookkeepers who measure twice and cut once. I mean,
Yeah.
they need to have a resistance element and not be comfortable with risk. That needs to make them pause. They need to be higher in conscientious. Conscientiousness is about the need to be accurate and get it right, versus someone who'd be lower in conscientiousness is about get it done. Right?
Great
Different
analogy. Great
cultures are
analogy.
going to show up in different places. There's some organizations where it's all about just get it done
Yep.
and good is good enough. Other places are about, now hold it, it has to be exact and accurate at all times, and you have to follow these policies.
Well, and let's be honest with each other. Accounting is an accuracy business. You know, there's not a lot of gray in accounting unless you're making decisions on, what are the advantages that I can find, in the taxes or in the trust laws or whatever it may be.
Well, interesting
So,
is, so those two things, just those two things alone, how they make a decision, gather
yep,
information, comfortable with risk. As they get new information, they're comfortable making a new decision, versus someone who gathers all the information before they make a decision, or
yeah,
someone who's all about get it done. And the other one is about, I don't care if it takes too long, I got to get it right. Somewhere in those two areas, people on this call, I just described the person they let go, because those were one of the two things that probably they weren't measuring. And Paul, those two things, not one of them's in a resume.
yeah,
And that's the stuff you find out after you've hired them.
yeah.
So what you are
So
going
how
to
long
do is we're
is
going to give them that information.
because we've just got a couple of minutes here. So the process when somebody you put up the job application and your firm puts it up on Indeed and Monster and various job boards, and so when they come in and they apply for this, what kind of quickly what happens when they
So,
apply?
okay, so from the candidate side, they're going to be coming in. So the tool itself pushes your job out to Google Jobs, Glassdoor, Monster, Indeed, Job. There's a bunch of other different places. Candidates apply. They don't know that they're on a second platform. So if they're found your job in Indeed, they will then apply by hitting the apply with Indeed, and all that data will fall down into your dashboard, along with the candidate will then get served up all the customized questions specifically for your company and that specific role.
Yes.
So the candidate won't really realize how much else is happening. They won't see it too. It won't be any different to the candidate. What it'll appear to be is, hey, thanks for applying. Could you now complete these questions? We'd like to learn more about you. So the candidate will then go in, give us some information, and answer all these questions, and all that will feed into your dashboard. So now you've got the answers to these questions and what they know and what they've done from the resume all in front of you on a dashboard. So you can decide which person you're going to interview first. And I always like to remind people, see, the tool is called Talent Sorter. It's not called Talent Eliminator. So what it'll say is, here's who they are. You can sort them by who they are. You can look at and sort them based on what they know. But Paul, the thing is that there's the what they know, the what they've done, and the who they are, and what time they are in their work cycle. You and I can help. We can change what they know. We can change what they've done, right? We can give them work experience. We can give them knowledge. But you and I cannot change who they are, and we can't change where they are in their life, for work life. Funny, the things that we sort candidates by today is the things we can actually change, the what they know and what they've done. Do you think that might be the reason we haven't fixed the problem in 50 years?
That's exactly right. And we are going to change my screen here. My apologies. I brought up the wrong one. Here I am in my multitasking. So because we're up in terms of our time, and I am a bit of a time master for those things. So what I want to be able to do here is I'm going to take this one, we're going to do this one, and then we're going to do this. And so for anybody, and thank you for Tim, this has been a lot of fun, always engaging. I've heard this from you many, many times. I still get excited every time I hear it, because your passion for what you do is infectious. And that's a good thing. And that's what we want our people watching and the people hiring people want to have staff who are infectious about their job and what they do. So what we're offering today to people who are watch live and watching this, or anybody who may come on afterwards and watch this, because it will be put up on my site, and Tim, you can choose to put it up on your feed if you wish as well, that we will offer for any firm owner or partners of a firm to do an assessment at no charge. In other words, what Tim had just talked about, doing an assessment of what a term looks like, a team looks like, what's your firm look like, and he talked about those words of culture, and the people that you're going to come in are going to adapt or be a fit to your culture. So please take us up on that offer if you so wish. And this is the contact information for myself. And you can get a hold of Tim at firsttech.com and go into Tim's email, and then he will most likely send you a link to get a time if you'd like to learn more. And you can also do the same through speaking with me and hop right into my calendar. So barring that, anything else you want to add in closing up, Tim? We're now 3 minutes past, half past the hour.
Half past it. Well, Paul, just like thanks so much for inviting me to come join you. I really look forward to doing this again. There's so many different topics we can go and talk about around working with your people. Always enjoy working with you.
Me too. Thanks, Tim. Thank you
Thanks,
for
Matt.
everybody for attending.